2, 1. We're live. Or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, no, it made no sense for us to do it on this one because, I mean, YouTube just sucks. Yeah. It's easier. It's easier because like you're right. The overlay for live streaming on YouTube, it's all right there. It's nice to have two screens now because I actually just put all that shit over there. Welcome to the CanadaGuns talk show, co-broadcasted through the Hunting Gear Guy channel. This is episode 107. What the hell did I call this? Bill C-21 bashing. Yay! Yay! Well, no, not yay at the Bill C-21, but at the bashing of. Yay! Everybody get your drinks out! Yay! Oh, shit. Sorry. Oh, fuck. What is that wine from? Oh, so Julie Payette used to drink it? Fuck yeah! Dude, you're not gonna get judged here. Like, look at the crowd. I mean, look at Crazy. Just look at him. You know. Good. Oh, sugar. Wait a minute. They're telling me that there is no audio. Oh, okay. Oh, we have our first issue. There's only audio from me. Audio input capture. Audio output card. Yeah. I'm on it.
And
yes.
microphone. Everything's good on my end.
I'm guessing headphones.
You gotta see levels moving when you're talking, and when other people are talking.
So on the next one, are we all going to have VTuber avatars?
No, just you.
You still need your. I'm gonna make you put on a freaking Agao face on your thing.
I'm not going to put an Ahegao face as my fucking thing on the goddamn mod chat.
Do it.
No.
If I was going to put up anything, I'd put up that giant cat face.
the lawyer that went up as the cat. I looked for that in Zoom because I wanted to use it on like a professional, like a meeting with clients. I wanted to show up as a cat, but I couldn't find it. Couldn't find that filter. Very disappointed. I'm a real lawyer.
Okay,
yeah.
Now we got everybody. Now everybody's sounding okay,
perfect. Good. Awesome.
Okay.
So we got a new bill that's not signed into law yet. They're just proposing.
There's nothing. I mean, has it technically been presented? Does that count as the first reading?
Yes.
Okay, so it's got its first reading.
How many readings does it need?
3 in the House of Commons, 3 in the Senate, and then royal assent.
Yep. And royal assent would be the toxic astronaut lady, right?
Well, considering
she's out, so it'll
resigned,
be whatever astronaut Trudeau can find to replace her.
We've got one other good astronaut. He plays music. He's awesome.
Yeah, except Trudeau doesn't want him because he previously ran for the Liberal Party leadership. And
Did
Trudeau's
he?
not going to. Didn't he? Or
No, that's Mark
Hatfield?
Garneau who did. He's talking
Oh.
about Hatfield.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I was
And
thinking Mark
Hatfield's
Garneau.
smart enough to know better.
Yeah, he's got better things to do this time.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I mean, Garneau
yeah.
might be a decent choice, but there's no way they're going to
He's-
pick him because, yeah, they don't
he's
want
still
to.
He's still foreign affairs minister right now.
Fair enough.
So we got this bill that came up, C-21. It's got a bunch of stuff in it, a bunch of stuff that we expected, and then stuff that like no one saw coming that was just completely wild. Where do we want to start? Do you guys want to start with the wild stuff first? I think the wild stuff is like the most interesting.
Okay, I'm gonna give you ample room to bleep this out afterwards. They just fucked airsoft, all of it.
Yep.
That is
Paintball
accurate.
too, right?
To an extent.
Paintball-
Yep.
There are
Basically.
because at the one paintball range that I've gone to, the rental guns were all M4s with a hopper on top of it. So
Yep. If it reasonably resembles a firearm, then it's
Yeah,
banned.
I mean, I'm not sure if I can show a paintball gun on the stream, so I'm not going to.
I think you can.
yeah.
I think you can. Yeah.
Okay, if that's allowable, then like this
I'm willing to risk
design
it.
would be fine, because there's nothing that looks like this.
Yeah,
I'm
that looks
aware of. Like,
Well,
this
Tech
is
9.
clearly a paintball marker.
That's a Tech 9. You know, if I was like one of the people at the CFP and I was blitz drunk, which I believe they are when they classify firearms, that's a Tech 9. That's a variant of a Tech 9.
yep, that looks like a
I
Tech
mean,
9.
it's
A little bit
vaguely
hyperbolic.
similar, but it's not close enough to count as a replica.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, it's too different. There's two. I mean, the hand grip is similar, but still different. The sort of fake magazine or magwell is substantially different.
For a Tech 9,
Yeah,
I can't see enough of the gun. It's too low. But anyways, yeah, it's
yeah. I don't think it's similar enough to count. So
Yeah, things like that are more speedball markers would probably be okay, even though that one's camo. It's still more so a speedball marker. You got the double trigger on there and all that. I'm willing to bet you can probably walk that thing relatively fast. But
Chad is saying
when it
that
comes
just
to
all that,
more of
Chad
the
is saying
Milsim-
those all look like WMDs. So there you go.
yeah, when it comes to the milsim stuff, because I know that's been getting increasingly popular in both paintball and it's always been the point of airsoft. That's all screwed. That's all totally screwed.
yeah, I mean, everything sort of remotely milsim is gonna be just hosed, and that's about it. I mean, and I've seen people say, "Oh, well, it's not going to be a big deal. We'll just have to, get the British paint jobs." Nah, that's not going to do it. The
what's
the
the British
past
paint job?
interpretations have
What's that
basically
mean?
said that color is not sufficient, because of course you can get a gun Cerakoted pink or whatever color you want.
And in Britain, you will lose your firearms license for doing so.
Well, here, there's nothing that says you can't have, a pink whatever. I mean, pink ARs used to be sort of a commonly available thing if you went to the gun store.
I
Not
was
so much
debating
anymore.
building one at some point.
But, I mean, when my wife came into the gun store with me at one point and somebody tried to sell her a pink whatever, she wasn't terribly pleased with that. She basically said, important safety tip, if you're going to hand me a gun, it better not be pink. But
I think that varies. Some women really like the pink stuff, and some of them just hate it. And it's important to know
yeah,
which one
it's
you're talking to.
exactly. I think that's one where you would, as a general rule, if you're a gun salesman, start with the conventional, and then move to the pink if they ask about it. Have it on the wall, but let them approach it, because otherwise you just end up looking like you're a dinosaur.
The thing that people are missing out on is Tiffany Blue. Tiffany Blue is awesome.
But like blue guns, for instance, have been stopped at the border, and those are just completely non-functional training aids. I mean, there's sort of two groups of people I know of who buy blue guns, and one is like people who want to do like disarming training and that sort of thing, and the other is like
Idiots
leather
like me.
workers leather workers who want to make holsters often buy them because it's a lot cheaper to buy a CZ blue gun than it is to buy the CZ.
Well, and you can leave the blue gun out in your garage or wherever you're doing it and mold it. So like Kydex molders or leather or any of that kind of stuff, you can just work with that blue gun as if you were a piece of plastic. It doesn't matter. Whereas a real restricted handgun, if you do any kind of work with it,
soak and mold for a while. Yeah. And also like if you're working with wet leather, because molding it is usually done with wet leather. I'd say usually, just because there might be some weird circumstance. I mean, you don't want to do that with the actual gun. You're going to cause problems if you're just like, well, let's cover this in soaking leather and leave it for a couple of days. So it, those have been stopped at the border as replicas.
Yeah. Airsoft. So what they said is any airsoft gun that is a replica of a real gun, of a non-restricted gun or a gun that fires above 500 FPS, anything that's a replica of that, those airsoft guns are now banned. They're all prohibs now. What can you even do with them? Do you have to lock them up and put them because I'm thinking about an airsofter that isn't also a firearms owner. If they've got that gun, what do they got to do? Lock and key? Trigger lock in a safe or trigger lock it in a case and lock the case?
Was there even a provision for grandfathering in that?
They've said in their public statements you'll be able to keep them, but there's nothing actually written into the law that says that. And the other thing is, if it's a defense that you had it beforehand, how do you prove that? How do you you're going to end up getting arrested and charged if they find this. So, it's not a safe thing to have in any sense. But there's nothing that I can see in the law, and I might be missing something. I'm going to check with some other people I trust on, this kind of issue. But I don't see anything written into the law that says that you can keep it just because you had it beforehand. The Liberals have said that in their press releases. But my reading of the law, unless I'm missing an exception somewhere, which again is possible, it looks like what you're going to have to do is not lock it up in a safe, but destroy it.
I don't even think there was anything in the provision that allowed you the grandfathering of the May 1st bans. I don't even think they had anything in that. And if they did, then theoretically to keep this, you would have to go and get a restricted license according to them. Go do your RPAL course and apply to have your airsoft gun registered.
Even there, I mean, it doesn't let you have a prohibited device, which is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but that's the only place in it that it mentions grandfathering ownership of a prohibited anything is in that. But I don't think it mentioned anything about the airsoft guns in that. So
yeah, I mean, the thing is it's specifically out of that, so you wouldn't be grandfathered. It would just be a situation of these things are now, they've basically turned into the equivalent of heroin. And, you can't have them kicking around for, actually, no, heroin is a lot easier to possess because it's theoretically possible to have a license, a prescription for that. So
people in the YouTube chat are comparing us now to a bunch of different countries. I'm seeing the UK and Japan. Not quite there, but we're actually getting at this point very close to Australia with this law.
I mean, the thing is Japan allows for
airsoft.
For airsoft. There's Japanese airsofters. There's and people were mocking the Australian gel blaster bans, but guess what? We've just joined them.
Yep, because that's the thing is Australia banned paintball, airsoft, gel blasters, whatever the fuck whatever those were.
I mean, they just shoot like a soft, wet, damp, blobby thing.
Yep. Australia's still allowed.
I've got a gel blasters aren't illegal yet, though.
There's
right?
Japanese airsofters.
Mid-velocity. Is there a velocity?
And the law comes in. You betcha they will. People were mocking the Australian gel blaster bans.
My kid's got a toy
guess
gun.
What? We've just joined them.
An M1A.
Because that's the thing is Australia banned
gel blaster.
So what does this affect Nerf darts? If you get a Nerf gun that looks too realistic.
Well,
I mean, that was already covered. But I mean, the thing is, this is going to end up hitting a whole lot of people who, when we think about it, are not the kind of people we want to be prosecuting. I mean, what they're going to end up catching for a long time is, kids and teenagers and adults who just, are playing games. This is, we are criminalizing some of the dumbest stuff to criminalize here. And they're gonna not just that, but they're gonna bankrupt a whole lot of people.
I mean, I'm going to probably have to go bankrupt keeping my handguns because I know City of Toronto is going to try and ban them, and I'm not going to give them up to them that
Vancouver
easily.
beat you to the punch. Vancouver was the first municipality that went, "We're doing it, yeah."
Well,
Toronto's been
let's talk about
saying
that
it
one.
since before this
Well,
even
no, this was
happened.
after the announcement. Everybody knows Toronto wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Toronto
Why
said
don't
it right after the announcement as well. John Tory was going, yes, we were blah, blah, whatever, stupid crap.
Vancouver's got better PR. Why don't we talk about that? So that was another thing that came in. We kind of expected that one though. So this one was the federal government is attempting to give municipalities the power to ban handguns in their jurisdiction, which would be storage and transport to those areas. So local municipalities would be able to just put a bylaw in, I guess, and then ask the federal government, hey, make sure that no one living here has a handgun. Like, am I reading that correctly?
Yep, that's exactly how that would work. Is just the so basically they're using the conditions section, and they're basically saying that this is an automatic condition to every license that you have to not store a handgun at a place other than a business that is the holder of a license that authorizes it to store, various firearms. If the bylaw is in force, and similarly must not transport it to or from a place within those boundaries, other than to or from a place a peace officer, firearms officer, or chief firearms officer is located, to a port of exit to take it outside Canada, or for a port of entry in order to bring it inside Canada. So the reason why they put that is because airports are a thing, and
Didn't think about
if
that.
you're
Yep.
flying to an international competition or something like that, that's kind of a thing. But note that it's to take it outside Canada, so that might not cover, for instance, flying from, Maple Ridge. You probably are driving into Vancouver if you're flying, from Maple Ridge to Toronto outskirts. Then you're going to have this issue of taking it to the airport in the meantime, and whether or not that counts.
There's also the thing of, I'm not sure about airports in other municipalities, but technically Pearson Airport is mostly in Mississauga, but partially in Toronto. So when it comes to that, then whose bylaw applies? And is it only like when it hits the certain edge of the airport that's Toronto that it applies to there, and the rest is under Mississauga / Peel region? Like,
Yeah. Which municipalities are likely to enact this? So some of the municipalities are definitely going to, and have said so online and in with press releases and whatnot. Which municipalities are likely to enact a handgun ban? Toronto,
Yep.
Vancouver are two of the ones that we mentioned so far.
I mean, you're going to see it in a bunch of like little odd places here and there. And what it's going to end up meaning is basically punting a bunch of people out of their homes. Like, one of the best things about Canadian law in general, the Canadian criminal law, has been that we have a federal criminal law, that's federal power. And what that means is that you can know what the criminal law is, generally speaking. But, and that we don't have like what the U.S. has, which is like these piecemeal, criminal laws depending in very different places.
I've seen so many people trying to advocate for that kind of piecemeal thing, and I'm just like, do you realize what that would end up causing in this country?
Well,
Nightmarish.
for myself, like if I I travel for competition shooting. I go and shoot 3-gun and IPSC and that kind of thing, and you do so. Frequently, what happens is you go to hotels in some of these different places that are closest to the range. I guess it's possible you like within province you don't really need to get a lot of the paperwork done that you do if you go cross provincial, but it's possible, I guess, that you could potentially go to a hotel in a place that you're not supposed to and bring your handgun, because like within the confines of what our ATT allows, that is possible. Like you could be that could be a reasonably direct route to the to that match. And you can break the law. accidentally.
What is
I
it
mean,
that
it's just
you
gonna
sent it
be-
to me. How is it that you put it? Floor is lava, PAL edition.
our PAL edition. The floor is lava. Our PAL edition.
I mean, the other thing here is just going to be a big constitutional problem because this seems to be an intentional effort to transfer criminal law power to municipalities who are not supposed to have criminal law power. That's not how the Constitution's supposed to work in terms of the division of powers. So, I mean, municipalities have municipal powers, and they always have. But to say now, and this was, their public statements have made it clear that was what the goal is we want these municipalities to have these criminal, powers. So, yeah, it's
I know I'm not the only one talking about challenging this if it gets implemented. Specifically in Toronto, I was on a Discord and someone else said he's already hired a lawyer, got him on retainer, and has a particular Supreme Court case about what authority municipalities actually have, that they're going to argue that whatever Toronto tries is against the Supreme Court decision in that case.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is going to be interesting. I'm trying to see if I can get. I'm sort of reaching out to some sort of constitutional law experts, because I have some constitutional law expertise, but the division of powers stuff is more interesting. So, and just see if I can, if one of them wants to come on the show to talk about it and their thoughts. And they may agree with me or they may not. But that's this, I think, is going to be a big issue.
In terms of the absolute crap show this is going to cause in lawsuits, I'm going to file one. My parents are probably going to have to file one. There's still at least 3 gun clubs in Toronto who I expect will probably also file them. Flaherty's will probably end up filing one. I expect North Silva probably will as well. Any other gun club in a municipality that tries to do it will probably be filing one. Any gun owner in those municipalities will either file one or join an existing one. One of the clubs I used to belong to through my family, it has several lawyers in the club who all own handguns and who live in municipalities that will be banning this. So they will all have their own incentives to go and have this overturned using their own expertise, basically in time pro bono, because they are personally affected.
So we're going to run into a similar situation as to the May 1st OIC, where everybody and their mother's going to try and jump in on this. Some will do good, some will do bad. But at the end of the day, this might not pass at all.
No, I mean, it's not going to pass this time around. What they're going to use this for is electioneering. Mm-hmm. And if they get Trudeau very much wants a majority government. And this is going to be, he's making a play for it. So this is going to be part of that strategy to try to get a majority government, is to throw gun owners under the bus. But I'm hoping that, there's stuff in here that should make non-gun owners and people outside the airsoft community a little worried.
Let's get everybody swatted. Yeah.
There's a swatting provision in this.
That one's pretty. So for our listeners and viewers right now, like we kind of had red flag laws before.
We didn't kind of have. The first,
you could lodge.
Option. Remember, Adriel, the first option when you call the Canadian Firearms Safety Program, and I know this because this is what I tell my students in the PAL course when I tell them about social responsibilities and upholding the law as firearm owners.
If you wish to report,
the first option in the Canadian Firearms Program switchboard is: do you have a public safety concern?
Mm-hmm. Press 1 if you wish to report a public safety concern. Very first thing it says.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And, the other thing they'll tell you if you do press 1, because I've actually reported, concerns, and there may be people who go, oh, hey, this guy's a rat. But no, the thing is, I've encountered people who have claimed to be firearm owners who really I am concerned about. And, so my thing is that for the benefit of the rest of us, it doesn't help us if there's these people running around potentially being a problem. And in fact, what we see whenever we see these situations where, like Wortman was reported by like everyone who knew him, and the police did nothing.
Yeah, right.
Like
By the way, you're speaking about the Nova Scotia massacre
Yeah.
guy. That's
Yeah,
who
so-
Wortman is. That's the guy that went and killed all those people in Nova Scotia. He
Yeah.
had so many things under his file, so many reports, so many things.
yeah,
that
but clearly the
should've caused
problem
something.
is that other
Well,
people are,
and
in three gun.
And the
not that
ironic thing
police
is-
failed to do minimal things there.
The ironic thing is, if he had his firearms license, they would have gone in, they would have investigated, they would have revoked it, taken all of his guns, and then that wouldn't have ended up happening. But because he didn't have a firearms license, suddenly it's a violation of his rights to go and do anything like that. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that this one was a no-brainer to go and get a warrant. And in fact, there's no, like, for the provisions that allow the police currently to go and, kick down doors and seize firearms, there's nothing that says you have to be a gun owner in there. It just says, they have to believe that you, that you may have these things and shouldn't be in possession of them. It's a tremendously powerful thing, but they want to just give this power to any random person. And so, if you have a beef with, a coworker or whatever, an ex, whoever, you could just go and basically and file ex parte, so they don't even get a chance to respond to this, for a temporary ban of them having guns, which then basically gives the police the sign off to go in and take your guns.
I mean, this has actually already happened. When I was reading some of the testimonials for firearms legal defense, they talked about having to defend people who had literally exactly that. Their coworkers that they got pissed off about and had them laid off or fired for being an idiot, called the RCMP and complained about them, and then they had to go and hire a lawyer to
But at
fight
least
that.
now there's the intervening step of you have to at least, the police have to bring it. I mean, the big group of people I think are going to be terribly affected by this is actually the police themselves. Because let's say you are Constable Joe Smith
I hate
and,
that guy.
you arrest somebody and that person's pissed off. Well, that person can then go and say, I want to apply for, an order. I was walking down the street. Lee Smith, attacked me. He punched me several times in the head. And, and they go, okay, great. This guy shouldn't have guns. We're going to ban him from having guns. Because nowhere in that does the person who's their ex parte mention, oh, right, that's Constable Lee Smith or, Joe Smith or whatever that, and so at that point, the order goes out and the guy's banned from having guns. The police might say, well, we're not going to go seize his guns because we know he's a police officer. But the order is still in effect, and it's still at that point a criminal offense for him to have those firearms because he's now prohibited. So, if you've got a grudge against a police officer and you're willing to lie in court, which plenty of people, who the police managed to get grudges with are, this just wrote a blank check. So, RCMP officers who are watching this, EPS, Vancouver Police, write your MP because you're on the block here too.
Well, and with this, it not even require you to have a firearms license. Someone could basically just SWAT anyone. The cops will show up and tear their house apart looking for a gun now.
Yep, you don't need a firearms license for this. So if your neighbor's pissing you off, whatever, it's terrible. Like, this is not a provision that should be. It's just open for whoever.
Well, we have a pretty strong constitution that's supposed to protect against unreasonable search and seizure, but this is like, nope. Actually,
it's kind of
We
unlike
don't
this-
have a
it's
strong
not
constitution
unlike
at all.
this a situation that we've already seen, which is, let's say, for example, the LAR mags or the Beowulf mags, where this has been put into a framework because it's not law, right? It's been put into a framework that the police are operating under, and until somebody goes and gets charged with that, this gets brought before a judge, and the judge laughs at the Crown's face because their arguments are non-existent. kind of like what we've seen so far whenever they've been examined in the litigation right now currently underway for the May 1st bans, where the Crown gets up and tells them, yes, we are not going to define a variant because then people would know what a variant is and would build things outside of the variant.
Yep.
And then the judge goes, come again?
Yeah, if people know what the law is, they will follow the law. Like that submission just made me go, what?
See, the thing with Beowulf mags too is what I understand they do with them is they just drop charges. If it gets to the point where the person's like, I'm not going to plead deal, you're going to have to take me to court on this, they drop the charges and keep the mags and then just say, fine, you want your mags back, you got to sue us. You're not going to bother. We're going to keep your magazines.
I've heard of people getting their mags back.
I've heard of people getting their mags back too. It's
Yep.
the thing is that they don't want the test case being some guy who is just sort of, a 3-gunner or, whatever else. What they're waiting for is for somebody to be found with a bunch of, cocaine. And
the one I heard of was actually a dude who was, at the time, marijuana was still illegal, and he was found in possession of marijuana, charged with criminal possession of marijuana, and also with the Beowulf mags, possession of prohibited device.
I will just note, though, even before it was banned, criminal possession of marijuana is, or was sort of a dog shit charge.
It was still, it was still technically a drug charge going alongside a gun charge.
Oh, for sure, but it's a drug charge that nobody cares about.
Him and his he got convicted on the marijuana charge, and then they were continuing to push on the gun charges. And him and his wife both had pals. They apparently threatened him that if he didn't take a plea deal on the on the Beowulf mags, they would charge his wife for possession of them as well.
Hey,
and his response.
Do I have a video on just that topic? Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
His response was going on CGN and saying, "Look, I'm not the best test case for this because I've been convicted of a drug charge, but this is what's going on." And he said, "I'm not going to plea. I'm going to let them fight. I'm not going to let them intimidate me." And what ended up happening with him is his wife was able to keep all of his guns somehow, but they kept his Beowulf mags, and they just dropped the charge when he said, "No, I'm going to just fight this." They dropped the charge for the Beowulf mags, but then said, "You're not getting them back."
And here's the thing. I mean, they're not looking for the Crown and the police are not looking for a test case of guy who has a little bit of weed or even guy who's got a little bit of fentanyl. What they're looking for is guy who's got, a whole bunch of cocaine and a whole bunch of heroin and a whole bunch of fentanyl.
With a gun with a Beowulf mag.
60 guns and, a hit list of his enemies and that sort of thing. They're looking for somebody who...
That kind of guy's not going to have a Beowulf mag, though. He'll just have unpinned regular mags.
That's why they're having
just
trouble
got
finding
PMAC
this.
with the rivet out.
That's why they're having trouble finding this case. But, that's what they're looking for. And that's what they'll take to court is that guy.
See, but the issue with that guy going to court there is a bunch of those charges will get pled out. They usually end up doing that.
Or maybe they fight it tooth and nail. I mean, it happens that, that's what they're looking for here. So,
yeah. So, what else do we see in this bill?
Here's what they decide. No, this is the thing that I want to bring up. This is what they want to do now that they've pulled a framework together for what will happen if you don't turn in your guns. So the buyback, whatever that is, whatever nebulous amount that they're going to give out, I've heard speculation. I don't know if anything's concrete, but they're going to give you the option of turning your guns in and getting some money. If you don't, here's where the fun begins. If you don't turn in your guns, you're going to have to register them. That is, the non-restricted ones are going to be registered. But if you're registering guns, that means you have a restricted license. So you need to have a restricted license if you're going to register your non-restricted guns that turn prohib. But if you're going to register those non-restricted guns that are now prohibited, you need to store them like restricted firearms. So you need to get a safe. If you hadn't needed to get a safe, now you need to get a safe because restricteds have to be in the safe. They just can't be trigger locked and left under the bed, which is a legal thing to do as long as they're unloaded. Now they have to be unloaded and they have to be in a safe. And the real awesome part about this is if you don't get a restricted license, it's pointless for you to register them. And if you can't get into a restricted
No,
course,
I disagree. It's
I don't think you're
it's
going to need the
almost
restricted
pointless.
license, but I'm going to have to reread it again.
You need a restricted license.
That is if you want to grandfather, but it's
Hmm.
almost pointless to do that because what do you get to do? You get
Nothing.
to
Nothing.
store them. That's
Yeah.
it. So if you
and
have,
you can't pass them down,
an
not like the other
AR-15,
prohibs.
Yeah.
Now,
So it's
they're done.
you just get to hang on to them. That's it. They still have to stay double locked. So you go through. Let's say you had a Stag Arms, a Stag 10 that used as a hunting rifle, your 308. That rifle's now prohib. Yeah, you can go get your RPAL, but you still have to keep it locked up in a safe or trigger locked and case locked and following all the other requirements. So there's not really much of a point to do that other than if you think the Conservative Party is going to get in and overturn this or completely change firearms law in Canada.
Yeah.
You have to believe that to even bother hanging on to it. Otherwise, there's no point.
yeah,
Yeah,
But, like, the
that's
government
pretty much
doesn't know about
it.
these.
If you're,
yeah, and that's
know.
the biggest thing. This is just like the long gun registry.
It is. It's a new
when
registry.
the long gun registry went poof, suddenly there were a smack load of guns that were not registered that are now out and about.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that wants to do this, that wants that spotlight on them, is going to do it. Because why would you? No one knows this thing was in your possession. Nobody. Okay? If you had a sales receipt saying that you bought this gun, that's the end of the trail.
Sold it.
Sold it. Or
Yeah, there's no
or
tracking
taking
on it.
the words of Ian here, why are you talking to the police? Shut up.
now, I'm never going to recommend anyone do anything, criminal, but I mean, they are going to have a tremendous enforcement problem, largely because I think a lot of the people who don't go, talking to the police about, looking to get grandfathered are going to be people who just don't know. There's going to be a lot of people sitting there with their, big, large caliber hunting rifles that are now over 10,000 joules who don't really think about that one. And,
I mean, when I worked at a shop, I still had. When I worked at a shop,
got a Mini 14 in the back of the barn.
Well, I mean, the thing no one's talking about is just how popular the Mini 30 and the Mini 14 are on some reserves.
Oh,
Because, and a lot of people on these reserves are not necessarily going to be aware of, what's going on here, because it's just, this is my hunting rifle. And especially because the messaging on this has been, oh, you can keep your guns, if you're an Aboriginal hunter, which is only very limitedly true.
Mhm.
They're going to end up getting a lot of people on reserves just, who weren't aware of the fact that they've been targeted here.
I mean,
So-
even
Well, and
beyond
they've been
that,
saying
when I worked
assault
at a
rifles too,
store,
right? And,
Well,
and-
when I worked
and-
at a gun shop, like there were people who would come in regularly who have had guns since the 70s, didn't have a license. They would come in and they would ask me, "Oh, I heard some laws changed a while ago. I got my guns back in like '85, but what do I need to do to like go hunting nowadays with them?" And I'd have to tell them, "Well, do you have a gun license?" "Oh no, I haven't had an FAC since like '89." And I'd go, "Well, to even possess a firearm now, you need a license." And these people, they had no idea. I'd have like a couple people, at least a month, come in who had no clue they needed a license to own the guns that they already owned.
Mhm. Yeah, it's going to be a large issue there. People just not knowing. I mean, the language around this is that this is an assault rifle ban. So you think like, oh,
Assault weapons.
My
Gotta use the
Mini
right
14
terms.
is fine. My Duria shotgun is fine. It's not an assault rifle. It's not a rifle at all. It's a shotgun. I have a large caliber safari hunting rifle for a Ruger number 1 and 460 Weatherby, but that's a single shot rifle. That's not an assault rifle. That'll be fine. But like all these other things have kind of been captured by this legislation. I mean, if you put out legislation that's like, we're going to stop race cars from being used on Canadian streets, and you had dump trucks in there, like someone would be like, whoa, your legislation is messed up. Like, you're talking about race cars and you got dump trucks in there? There is some serious stuff that's wrong
They'd
here.
talk about
This is
race cars. They'd ban the Honda Civic in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
or like this
Because
this
it's
is like
readily adaptable to be a street racer.
a race car. It's kind of like uh, the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was like, oh yeah, Patriot Act, yeah, America, but it was like this is serious government overreach, like blanketed with this name that is not applying to it at all. And this kind of seems similar to it. Now, I mean, like I think you were mentioning early on, Ian. All this, like this is a mess. That this looks like it was not really well designed legislation, which maybe they just didn't care about it. Maybe this is just like this is a political trap for the Conservative Party to fall into, because there's been a couple of things that they've added into here that would make for a really compelling story. Story would be the Conservatives like, oh, we're going to repeal C-21. And then the Liberals can turn around and say, they're going to repeal C-21? That law has in it that you're not allowed to modify a magazine to be over capacity.
You're missing one of the
anyway.
biggest tentpole talking points on this, which is this law is made to protect women. You want to repeal this law? You hate women.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
they've put all sorts of traps in it to try to make for a very bad story for the Conservatives if they try to repeal it and try to like make up, oh well, people will be rolling around your Walmarts with like drum mag AK-47s if this is repealed and other such nonsense. You know it though. You know, crazy. Like the last time with C-21 they were talking about and before.
Oh, I know that with the Canadian Tire parking lots for you can bring your handgun to the hockey arena. But like, please, I want to roll up to my Walmart with the AK on my back. Let me, please.
I mean,
jeez, have you seen the people in Walmart?
If you want to sling your Valmet and walk into Walmart, that's legal. It is. It's unloaded. It's legal. But you're still gonna meet the TAC team.
Yeah.
The legality on that gets really sketchy.
It's legal for me to walk around downtown Toronto with a Tavor on my back. That one I know for sure.
That is one of my favorite questions. If there's a cop in the PAL course, that is one of my favorite questions to ask. Okay, let's put our shotgun unloaded on a gun rack in the back of my pickup truck and drive through downtown Calgary. Is that legal? And you just see the sweat start pouring down their forehead. I mean, it is.
So we've been talking about like some of the various things in here. There's a couple of more things that we could get into. Is this going to pass? Is this just a trap for the Liberals to shore up support to say the cons are going to allow roving maniacs with AKs around and people to carry? Like I was listening to a CBC thing where they had someone from a criminologist from Simon Fraser University who did not understand this stuff at all. He spent 1 hour researching. He said, I spent 1 hour researching this beforehand, and he came in and he didn't know anything. He was talking about people, you don't need to own and carry handguns around in Canada to carry handguns. So is this just a trap? Is this just the Liberals gearing up for a summer election push while COVID is still around? Because like a lot of our provincial governments have been doing...
That's what I think
really
this is. It's electioneering.
This is electioneering because they know it can't go through yet. I'm wondering if that criminology person was one of the people who taught me any courses when I was at Simon Fraser. But
sounded pretty old, and he did not in English, and he did not know what he was talking about at all. At all. Every sentence had like 2 or 3 things.
By callers.
Yes,
a bunch of people call in and just shred him.
Oh, he was just wrong on everything. Every sentence he said, it was like, well, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. How many factually incorrect things can you get wrong in one sentence? Anyways, that's the CBC, and that's to be expected. But
if they wanted somebody who is knowledgeable, I'm not hard to find.
Wait, let me tell you, Ian, if we ever get a reporter watching us, oh boy.
Oh no.
I mean, the thing is that, I'm always careful with my public messaging not to be anything that is ammunition for, but I'm also a pretty boring guy when it gets right down to it. I try to follow the laws. I try to, whatever. I just have opinions. That's all. but I'm not ever up to anything sort of no good. But yeah, no, I mean, this seems to me to just be electioneering. They have to know that when they push shit through at this, at this stage of the game, that there's not enough time left to get it through. But, expect this to come back. I don't think it's any coincidence that we see that the poll numbers have been dipping because of, problems with what do you call it? Vaccine rollout and so forth. So, hey, what is a great, news cycle reset? New gun law.
New gun law.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it seems that way.
And I mean, if you're looking through this, does this not feel rushed to you?
Oh yeah.
Feels rushed to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Right,
the most
so-
the most ridiculous thing that I'm thinking of with this is whether it will be the bill that causes an election before the Liberals even call it, because the NDP and Bloc have both said in the past they will not support the bill unless the confiscation is mandatory. So if they're both willing to stick to their guns on that, gun control will cause an election in Canada, because this bill is inherently a confidence motion because it deals with the appropriation of property and finances.
I
Both of which
saw
are-
that the Bloc isn't going to support this because the handgun ban is at the municipal level. I can understand
and
that.
I
The
predicted
handgun
that
ban is
beforehand.
You did. You did. I remember.
I had that video on municipal gun bans,
You
and
did.
one of the things I said is that the Bloc is going to hate this, because the one thing the provincial government of Quebec does not want is a federal government end run around their powers. That's
Yeah.
and I think a lot
Alberta
of
and
provinces
Saskatchewan are both.
may similarly be saying, wait a minute, we don't like this notion that the federal government is suddenly going to delegate power past us.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Alberta and Saskatchewan have both said they're going to take the federal government to court over them attempting to do this. At the province will go to court to defend their rights over municipalities, which would nullify that entire portion of it completely. But yeah, the Quebec government has themselves come out and said that they don't like this bill because the handgun ban should be national, because the confiscation is optional, because of a whole host of other things. And so the Bloc are just basically the federal voice of the provincial Quebec government anyways. And so if the provincial government says we hate this bill, it's garbage, the Bloc are going to be like, well, we're not going to support this bill because the province says it's garbage. And they say it's garbage because it doesn't go far enough. The real thing comes down to the NDP. They've said if it's not mandatory confiscation, we won't support it. So it's going to come down to, is Jagmeet Singh willing to cause an election over claiming the Liberals don't have strict enough gun
I don't
control?
I don't know.
don't
Did
think
he
they
get
want
another
to,
mortgage
though.
in his
They
I don't
fucking
think they're
headquarters
going
yet?
to, but maybe.
They did. They've paid off their debts on that headquarters, and that's one of the reasons why there's this election talk now.
I guess
Which,
now
um,
I guess now they're back into solvent territory, so they can be
Now,
what do you call it?
a lot of people
whatever.
might have heard the rumors of the election, but there was some fairly concrete statements made in the Toronto Star that they got from Liberal insiders as to the timeline of this. So supposedly what Trudeau is planning to do is introduce a budget sometime either late February or early March, hopefully get that budget passed. Who knows whether they're going to try and push this thing through. In terms of this gun control bill, they're not going to be able to push it through as quickly because the Conservatives are going to be able to stall it in committees for a very long time. But the Liberals are going to try and shove a budget through probably as quickly as they can, and then call an election in April or May for early June. And that was the exact timeline they were stating, is that they want an election in early June, and they want to call it in late April, early May, in order to give the 36-day required election cycle for that election. And that they were saying it's going to depend on that the Liberal team is going to choose whether to call that election depending on how the vaccine rollout is going and whether or not they meet vaccine delivery targets for March.
Well,
And
and
for
whether
the
the
end of
NDP
February.
has the money to put towards an election right now.
Oh, it's not. It's not.
That was
no,
the risk with the last.
That's completely irrelevant to this because this was Justin Trudeau can go to whichever justice is currently acting as Governor General and just request that they dissolve Parliament without needing to even
Oh,
pass
I
a
see.
confidence motion. So this Toronto Star article was talking about the Liberals were going to go to the Governor General and call an election without a confidence motion. So they wouldn't care what the NDP is doing or anyone else is doing. This was their plan for an election all along. So all this crap Trudeau's been saying of no, we don't want an election, no, there's no whatever.
No,
He's
that's-
been lying through his goddamn teeth the whole time.
If there's one thing we can be certain is that Justin Trudeau has no morals. So move on
As a
past that.
politician, politicians do all do the same thing. Their job is to get reelected, and that's what
Oh
they're
yeah,
trying.
by the way, let me interject here momentarily to get you a message from the mod team. Fuck off. Carry on.
That's a Reddit mod team.
Yes.
They care about you, but fuck off.
Oh man. By the way, Chris, crazy. How did you find your first poop storm?
I mean, technically, my first poop storm that I really moderated wasn't even this one. It was the Wolverine supplies announcing the CCFR didn't get the injunction thing. That
was merely a poop storm. This was like a
no.
a poop
I mean, I had
hurricane.
to see with this one. There was I think a lot fewer things that like. Partially because it happened while I was at work, so I couldn't really be on moderating it too much. But with the other one, I had to basically delete half the goddamn thread. Like half of the posts on there were some absolute garbage, and people
Yeah, you're right.
accusing
We
the judge.
we didn't get that many
of
crazies. We just got a
so
lot of
many-
angry people that we had to pull their comments because
No, I got people like when I warned them, if you go and question the impartiality of the judge, you will be banned. And I kept having to remove comments and ban people of people who were like, this judge was paid for by the liberals. They bought them out. They sold themselves out to whatever. And I'm like, you absolute donkey. Shut up. Shut the hell up. No, they didn't. No, you.
So why is it important to mention that, Crazy? Just so everyone else knows.
For the impartiality of the, well, for one, you're accusing the judge of a crime. You are slandering the judge by accusing them of committing a crime, which is something you can be charged, you can be sued for. And second, it's a matter of public opinion and optics here. Like the judge is.
There's a lot of optics involved.
We have
yeah.
like the Canadian judicial system is known for its impartiality. Just because a judge gave a decision you don't like does not mean the judge is being paid for by someone to do that. The judge came to that decision based on pre-existing evidence. They demonstrated in their reading, no matter what your opinion is, that they actually had a grasp over what they were ruling on and why they ruled the way they did. Just because the ruling was something you didn't like doesn't mean the judge was not impartial in doing it. And if you actually have any evidence to suggest the judge was not capable of being impartial, I suggest you bring it to the lawyers who are bringing this suit up in federal court, because they are really going to want that proof. But without that proof, you are slandering the judge and tarnishing the image of gun owners across this entire nation by doing so. So shut the hell up.
Ian, you called it, man. Injunctions are hard.
Oh, that's the thing is, it was a shoot the moon effort, and you're not going to be able to pull it off if you don't try. But everybody involved, was clear this was going to be a hard, sell and a long shot.
I am disappointed they didn't get the FRTs stopped, like the FRT bans, because a judge really seemed to not like those. But
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the thing is it's just such an uphill battle to get an injunction that they tried. It was a good try. I was really impressed by the council on that one.
They brought it. They brought it, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it wasn't there, and I don't know if it was possible to have gotten it there. So that's. I
mean, I think,
but they did their best
your video,
to go there.
What I got from your video is like they could have brought in a little bit more testimony, but like they brought it. Like that's it. Like they presented the case. They presented the case, and it was a good case, and it still didn't make it.
Well, and some things are just never necessarily going to be provable. They'll say oh, there's not evidence on this. Well, sometimes you just that's not a thing that you can bring, right? It just doesn't exist, or it's not possible. So
might be able to prove it afterwards, like the damages to businesses. Like they're saying, well, you didn't prove enough. You bring enough evidence to prove the damage to businesses. And I think we might get that afterwards. We might see some businesses fail and people lose their jobs afterwards.
The thing is, an ATRS's lawsuit kind of shot that in the foot a bit by proving that you can go and sue for financial damages. So technically, those damages are not irreparable.
So long as these people are still in the, are still in business, it's kind of hard to show irreparable damage because, that's the key thing there.
People
right?
want to persevere. They don't want to shut down.
I mean, but in the judge's ruling, she stated that financial damage is not irreparable because you can sue the government, and actually cited ATRS's case against the government, suing them for financial compensation to prove that
what
you
I'm
can
going to say right now is go watch just everybody, if you haven't, go subscribe to Runkle of the Bailey. Go watch all his stuff because it's all there. All we're talking about here, to an extent has been already discussed at length and very thoroughly to all the haters that don't like Ian to read. Well, F off. That's what
a lot of this stuff is detailed, and it needs a detailed explanation.
If you want the detail, if you want to know what we're talking about, Runkle of the Bailey, go.
I literally have a buddy who was talking about this with me, and he said, "I'm going to wait until Runkle of the Bailey's video about this new bill comes out."
The problem is that this bill is going to be such a nightmare that it's going to be like 8 videos.
I told him that. I'm like, he's going to make a whole series.
You got to, Ian. I got a whole bunch of questions here. Can I queue up like a lightning round for you?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Potato cannons, potato guns.
Ooh.
Over
so
20 millimeters.
Cannons are, going to be in a really interesting spot because they're either legal if they, fall into the sort of 84 sub 3 provision, or they're super banned if they fall into that. And I have to actually consider the potato gun thing in looking at the, the revision here, but I don't think that most potato guns are, going to fall into the prohibited device section.
Hey man, I've seen some recoilless rifles that look a lot like a potato gun.
How much does this potato gun look like a bazooka?
They've got to be sort of near precision, so it's not sort of looking like it's, it's
okay,
more
fine.
than that.
Maybe not the potato guns. What about t-shirt cannons?
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because a lot of potato guns are sort of a very basic kind of shape, right?
I think the concern is more that if they're over 20 millimeters of bore diameter.
Yep.
And most of them are still going to end up being legal unless they shoot over 500 feet per second, which some do. So there was a video of somebody who built a giant pumpkin cannon. And that thing, they noted that they measured it and that it was, 600 feet per second. And I'm like, that is a prohibited firearm in Canada.
No cool pumpkin launchers in Canada.
Nope.
I mean, I don't know when the last time there was a homicide that occurred.
A pumpkin-related homicide.
Yeah, I mean, has there ever been a murder where somebody drove down the street and fired a pumpkin at a rival gang member?
Yes!
I mean,
yes!
Yeah, someone came by and stole the headless horseman's head and yeeted it at the Easter Bunny.
I mean, if so, I think that would have made the news, gang member, flattened by flying pumpkin. That's the kind of thing the news would, every channel would be running that, and international news organizations would be running that. So I conclude that this just isn't happening, right? People are not yeeting pumpkins at each other with, All
right, I got one question
nevertheless,
for you that I saw already. Is reverse straw purchasing legal? Like if I had a license and I bought a legal rifle from a prohibited person?
Depends on the circumstances, and that one gets super complicated. So contact a lawyer if you're considering it, because it gets into super complicated areas.
With the new C-21, they'll have to call in, and you'll have to call in, and you'll have to get the permission slip.
C-21. Thank you for furthering.
You'll have to get the permission slip that says yes, you are allowed to sell this non-restricted gun to this other person who's also licensed. Right. Yep. I got another question here. Is it a confiscation of firearms while challenging a certificate revocation, denying access to justice? I don't know what that refers to. I assume you do.
Well, what this is saying is that previously, if they just revoked your firearms license, like they gave you a notice of revocation, you could challenge it, and then while that challenge was going on, you could hold on to the firearms. You just couldn't do anything with them, and you couldn't buy any new ones or anything like that. And so it provided this kind of intermediate step between like the situation where we need to seize somebody's guns now, or maybe this is not such a huge issue right away. So it was used for situations of sort of some concern but not urgency, if that makes sense. And situations where, for instance, they might say, that some sort of paperwork error is the reason why they're revoking it or something along those lines. But now, in order to bring the challenge, you actually have to turn your guns in to the police, which is...
Well, as far as I know, the Section 74 challenges that people are doing right now, would those be covered by this? Like, you want to challenge that your AR-15 is nullified instead of restricted, but you got to hand it in now. Isn't that the case now?
In theory, yes. And so, now I think that these challenges, at this point have predated, so there's going to be an issue there. But I mean, this kind of thing kind of brings the issue in, which is like if the CFO says we want to, revoke your registration certificate because we think it's not, that it's not current or something along those lines, and you want to challenge that, then how do you have to turn it in, even if it's a situation where perhaps you and the CFO agree that that you should be able to have it. The example I might give here is, let's say you had a restricted firearm and you modified it in such a fashion that it became a non-restricted firearm, or at least that the CFO believes it's now a non-restricted firearm. Now you think it's still restricted, and so you think you still need a certificate, but they say, we're revoking the registration certificate because it's no longer eligible for one because now it's non-restricted, which means they think you can still have it. And you're saying, I don't want you to revoke it because I think it's restricted, and I want, to make sure that I'm following the law because I am a diligent, law-abiding person who wants to make sure that they are above and beyond. And so I want to challenge it. You and the CFO both agree that there's nothing wrong with you having this gun. You just disagree as to what the laws are. But now you'd have to turn it in order to challenge it. Like, how does that make sense?
Is trying to pander to Polly, who wanted Section 74 challenges removed entirely. And this is them trying to hit some stupid middle ground that pisses everyone off. We're like, oh, well, we're still going to let them do that because otherwise, functionally, you could issue the challenge regardless of whether or not it's you can challenge it regardless of that specific Section 74. But they're like, you can still challenge it, but you can't hold on to it anymore. And they're trying to hit some middle ground that no one likes and no one wants.
I mean, I don't know why they're trying to get rid of those like those reviews, because you need some sort of judicial review. You can't have it.
Remember, go back to that saying, never attribute to malice what can be more easily attributed to incompetence. They're just incompetent.
When it comes to the anti-gun lobby, I don't think so. I think it is completely malice.
They're incompetent. They're trying to find a middle. You said it yourself. They're trying to find a middle ground, but they're just incompetent.
I don't think so. There's a lot of doctors, and those doctors are highly educated people. They're asking for things like the red flag and the yellow flag laws. Okay, we already had those. We already had a way of lodging a safety concern with someone who had firearms. So this person has firearms, but they're like crazy, or they're part of a gang, or they're going psycho. Like, there was already a way of like handling that. But they added this provision anyways, and I am just like, I don't know how much after we have to wait for this bill. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, but it's just going to be a matter of time before Drummond or another one of the docs for that docs that hates guns swats someone. So it's like, oh, this person said something that I feel was a threat to me. I personally feel an objective third party might not feel that, but I felt it. I felt
absolutely.
a threat, and I feel like they should have their guns removed from them. and that's going to be like a method of harassment plus that is allowed by law.
With Drummond in particular, he's a gun owner, and have you seen some of the things he says on Twitter? You look at some of the statements.
He's crazy. There's no doubt about it.
So how does he know this isn't going to come back and bite him in the ass?
Well, the other thing, so I did a video where I tested various sort of self-defense spray things.
I watched that video you said when you explained what happened afterwards.
And so what ends up happening is somebody watched the first 8 seconds of the video and decided that when I said I was going to spray this into cows' eyes, they assumed that I meant that I was going to drive out to rural Alberta, find a cow, and spray oven cleaner at it. Which sounds to me like a great way to get killed by either the cow, the farmer, or first the cow and then the farmer. I don't see any way that is a survivable move. But anyway, so they got this idea that that's what I was going to do. And so they sent me a death threat. And, that's all been resolved. I don't think, I managed to explain to them that this was cow's eyes that were removed from the cow. And, just a byproduct of the fact that people eat cows. So, this was just part of the whole beef industry, not, being some sort of crazy psycho. But I mean, I could have easily imagined this person then deciding instead that they were going to go and, make this complaint and, say, hey, I want
take that little clip, take that 8-second clip from the front, introduce that as their proof. Hey,
or
I've got proof.
Don't even bring in the, the video. Just say he had, he did a video where he sprayed oven cleaner into cows' eyes and those poor cows. And of course, whoever's hearing this is going to think, well, that guy's a psycho. And they're not going to actually go and say, and then later on, I'd be saying, well, actually, here's the video and, it's harmless. Like the cow eyeball is just as dead as it was when I started and never experienced any pain on account of it was never alive during any portion of the video. So, but then I'd have to sort that out 30 days later after I, have already had police kick down my door and rifle through my shit. And, because when the police hear gun owner and we need to go take their guns, they don't show up and knock politely.
No, they
say, hi.
You get to meet the TAC team.
Yeah, it's the tactical team is out, bursts through your front door, tosses in a flashbang, and shoots your dog. So, I don't think I should be alone as a Canadian in feeling like maybe I don't want to be subjected to this based on nothing. Based on just the statements of somebody who really may not have anything to lose. They may, so
it's a great tool for harassment. And I think that's the real risk of having this introduced is that it kind of avoids the Constitution in unreasonable search and seizure. And it allows for a very easy swatting based on I think I saw him in his backyard with a handgun, but maybe it was his cell phone. I don't know. Maybe it was his handgun.
Hey, man, next time I'm bringing the gun cases back into the home. If my neighbor doesn't like the fact that my lawn isn't perfectly manicured, guess what? I get to meet the TAC team.
Yeah. The biggest issue with challenging any aspect of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms allows the judiciary system to completely ignore the violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, of course, dependent on the Oakes test, but the Oakes test is not necessarily applicable in 100% of cases. But in terms of what they apply on the Oakes test, there is an unfortunately real risk that they will just apply the Oakes test, say, well, the government has a very specific goal in doing this violation of the charter, and completely ignore the fact that
don't skip around it. It's public safety. Ian said it over and over and over again. That's what was gonna catch the injunction. It's public safety. Yep. They utter those words, and then just everything vanishes.
Yep, and so that's basically the issue.
You could have laid the perfect case, and the Crown says public safety. Poof,
yep. And so that's the thing is there's a very real risk that they just do that, and then the Crown and then the judges go, well, okay, then Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that it violates the Constitution and unreasonable search and seizure. Who cares? Public safety.
Well, so just to kind of move things along here, let's say this is in law tomorrow. And you can't challenge it; it's just in law. What are some of the changes you think you'll see immediately? Like, what are the changes that people will have to make in their lives?
Kind of related to that. If this law is passed, how would it affect people creating content right now? Well, Adriel and I get to buy a crap load of cheap handguns, and people like Gracie get effed.
Yeah, because the municipalities will ban handguns, and like we don't know what a municipal handgun ban would look like, but it would probably look like if you're in Toronto, GTFO, get out or sell your handguns, which means that all those people in those large metropolitan areas get to sell their handguns for a reduced price because there's going to be a pile of them on the market.
And I'm going to receive no proper compensation.
I take donations of firearms.
Same here. I make great content. You can see it by looking at the channel. So just give me your guns.
Yeah. So that is.
The other thing that they're going to do, or that you're going to see, is let's say you've got a $1,000 gun. And now suddenly the market is going to be flooded by people selling their guns. Some of those people are going to be tempted to, instead of selling their $1,000 gun for $250, into this flooded market, you're going to see some people, and it's not going to be many, but it's going to be enough, going, maybe I'm willing to, sell this a little, to someone else.
No,
So,
you mean get the
I
gun
suspect
stolen?
I suspect you're going to see some of these guns, and not a lot, again, because by and large, people are, law-abiding and so forth, but they're going to be pissed off, and they're going to be, so I think some of them are likely to find their way onto the black market. And, good move, team.
Especially the non-restricted ones that went to prohib, because those aren't tracked. Like with a restricted handgun, it's very hard to make that disappear. It's got your name on it. It's got a serial number that can be pulled even if you grind it off. There's not really a way around that. So definitely, like those ones, like you're carrying a significant criminal risk with those. With the non-restricted ones that went prohib, there's some out in the cut, like people have them, they're around, it's hard to track those.
The thing too with the municipal ban crap is obviously the federal government's not going to have an infrastructure to confiscate the gun from you in the event that you can't sell it on the open market, and there's going to just be the argument, well, it's not banned everywhere, just sell it. And the problem with that is, as people have already mentioned, the market's going to be flooded, artificially increasing supply.
We're already seeing it. CGN is getting busy.
But it's going to artificially increase supply and artificially reduce demand by limiting where you can own these things. And therefore, the owners in the areas that are being screwed on this aren't going to be getting fair value for their firearms and have no real recourse, to, as far as I'm aware, to try and sue the government for it, because the argument the government will make is, well, you can just sell it. You can just sell it. So it doesn't matter that the fact that you have to sell it for a fraction of its worth. You can still sell it. So
you can sell your Shadow 1 for $500 on the market, and it's lower than market value. That's your problem.
Not anymore. It's not. That's what market value is. You sold your gun on the open market. Oh, what's that? We artificially reduced the available market.
We tanked
and
the market
with this.
Therefore, your market prices. Yeah.
The municipal ban is a really good move if you want to divide and conquer, because there's like the cities that are going to be doing this are the biggest metropolitan areas in Canada, the fastest growing areas in Canada, and those are going to be the places where there just aren't going to be handgun owners anymore. There aren't going to be restricted rifle owners anymore, and those people are going to either sell their guns and just move on with life, move on to another hobby or whatever the case might be, or they're going to move out. They're going to move to other areas, and we're going to end up with these extreme examples. Like the difference between Alberta and Toronto is very large. The desires of the voters there are very different, and I think that's going to make things very difficult for Canada in the future. But again, it is a voting play. The Liberal government needs additional voter support in Toronto. They don't give a crap about Alberta. They're never going to get a spot here anyway, so it doesn't matter how hard they screw us or other areas where there's like high gun ownership, right?
So some of the other issues with this as well too is theoretically they're going to have to prescribe through order in council the appropriate way for a municipality to enact the ban. So even if this comes into law, they still then have to introduce an order in council to explain how a municipality can ban handguns. The municipality, there's a 180-day notice to gun owners, theoretically, so you have 6 months to get the hell out of Toronto. But on top of that, theoretically, you could, while challenging that, try and request an injunction claiming irreparable harm. But even regardless, theoretically, because you are challenging basically the revocation of your registration certificates because of your geographical area, you have to hand in your handguns while you are challenging this, even though theoretically it doesn't start into force for another 180 days. From the point
Except
that
it wouldn't be challenging it under Section 74, I don't think. So
I don't know if it matters whether it's under Section 74, because I think they just said if you're challenging a revocation, regardless, you have to hand the guns in while it's being heard.
I'll have to check that, but I think it's under. Yeah, no, it is under Section 74.
Okay, it is, but then we don't know, though, whether it's going to be a Section 74 hearing, because it is a revocation of a certificate, theoretically. So wouldn't it fall under Section 74? And then you have to challenge the revocation as well as the amendment to your license, as well as the municipal bylaw. It comes into a whole huge mess of things that culminates in, even though theoretically it's not happening for another 180 days, while you are challenging it, you have to hand your guns in and then hope you can get an injunction proving irreparable harm to get your guns back and have the bylaw suspended until it can be heard finally, which is... I'm already thinking about how much of a goddamn nightmare this is going to be. And I'm not even a lawyer.
I think we can be confident in saying that Trudeau has managed to one-up his dad in managing to get people in Alberta to spit at the even mention of his name. Because that's one of the things that my dad used to say is like, if you mention Pierre Trudeau in Calgary...
Trudeau was practically a curse word in Alberta.
You would get people go... Yeah. So...
I mean,
let's
the
take
only
this back. Adriel, you had a couple more questions for Ian?
Conservative government.
Yeah, I could. There's so many.
let's get him out there. Get him out there. Bang, bang, bang. Pick something juicy, but not too juicy.
There's so many. There's more on the potato cannons. How much kinetic energy does a pressure washer technically have? Nah.
Go, keep going.
That's an interesting one.
Why did 12.6 handguns be allowed at the range, but 12.5 rifles don't? I own both.
Because
that's
F
from
you,
one
man.
of
None of that makes sense.
Because politicians suck. That's the long and short of it.
Hey,
That's
remember?
the way they wrote the law.
Actually, here's a fun one. Remember that 32 and 25 ACP ban that they did in the 90s, but that had to be amended because Olympic-style pistols were also covered in that? They did it again, folks. They banned all the training biathlon guns because they look just like real guns, and they're air guns and pellet guns.
I'm definitely covering that as well.
Yep, they did it again. They did it again. Yeah. Next one, Adrian. Yeah. Go on.
Very, very common thing to happen. There was someone saying, what happens if the Alberta CFO starts issuing ACTs for
they got rid of it. Ian
did
it in the video. Ian,
give me a second. Let me finish the question. Protection of life to, say, battered women. And I think we know the answer to that. The answer is that they're moving that to the federal level, and the federal level, they will never
give it away.
Yeah, they've totally just yoinked that out of the power of the provincial CFO. Yep. Which makes me kind of glad I didn't get the job, because that would have been half the fun.
Yeah.
But
ATCs, yo. ATCs.
What if you're like, I'm a battered woman and I like to trap coyotes, and I need a handgun? Can you use a wilderness carry? Is it wilderness carry ATC going to do the job, or are the limitations around that
No.
too strong?
No, I mean you wouldn't be able to use wilderness carry for in the city.
I'm on my way to dispatch a coyote right now. No, not good enough. Okay.
Someone is saying that for a 1600 psi pressure washer, it pushes 31,000 joules.
But I mean that should be really pushing a joules per second, right? So
It doesn't. The wording is ambiguous. Your pressure washer is a prohibited firearm.
arguably, I mean it's an interesting. I don't know what the feet per second is on the pressure washer.
We had some questions on how do you think the airsoft community will fare. I
Badly.
think, it's
Yeah.
this.
I
this
mean,
is
I've been
documenting them.
telling airsofters for years that they should get politically active on this stuff. And
Some of them
what I
are.
largely heard was, well, we don't want to, we don't want to make any waves because we just want to sort of cruise under the radar. And I'm like, you are on their radar. I know that you are already on their radar. Like, don't pretend you're not on their radar.
And this
And-
proves it. And now is when they're kind of
Well,
going,
I-
oh crap, because I've checked like one of the biggest
RCMP
airsoft shops in
been
Toronto
making
has it up on their
statements
website now saying join the CCFR.
Yeah,
You're getting
the RCMP have been
airsofters
making
promoting.
statements about this for ages.
You've got airsoft shops now promoting the gun lobby as a consequence of Trudeau banning their stuff. It's kind of
Yep.
hilarious.
Well, I mean, and here's the other thing that's going to happen. These airsofters are going to lose, they lose their airsoft guns and they're going to say, well, I need a new hobby. And I've been really active and made a whole bunch of friends with the firearm community. Why don't I buy a rifle? So I suspect you might see a lot of former airsofters at the range.
Somebody said, I'm in the GTA and I'm seeing owls everywhere. COVID has been kind to wildlife.
Well, here's the other fun thing is that there is actually a really interesting exception or really interesting loophole that I guess I'll drop just because it's, I'm kind of scooping myself for my video tomorrow. So there is a SIG P226 airsoft pistol that the RCMP have listed in the firearms reference table as a restricted firearm. And their argument is that if you strip they say that if you strip the frame, that you can put a real steel upper on it and that, somehow you could make this work. Now, I don't see how it could happen, but here's the fun thing. You could start designing airsoft guns in such a way that they are basically just readily convertible back real steel firearms. What you might see, for example, and I've tested this out, this is actually pretty funny, is they make little airsoft shotgun shells that you fill with carbon dioxide and that then fire out the pellets. And so long as you pad the sort of firing pin on those and wedge them in a little bit with some other stuff, you can fit those into a shotgun, like a real shotgun, so long as you just, you have to shim it and so forth to get it to fit because they're intentionally designed not to fit very well. But you might actually now see people going to play airsoft with, for instance, shotguns loaded with airsoft. Because that's the only way to do it legally now.
And the thing with that is that's even more debatable in its legality because at this point an airsoft gun is kind of sort of not a gun, but that one is very undeniably a gun that you're pointing at someone.
But
and
I mean,
so I know you had a whole video about how
hey,
airsoft
we're doing it
is
safely, and whatever else. It's like this is bizarre to me. So,
But yeah,
that's
that's
one
one of the things. Have we talked about? Is like, why did they include this? Like all that other BS, they've been talking
so basically,
about it
what it
forever.
is that the
But why
RCMP
did they
get
target
really
the airsoft.
They get really upset because every once in a while somebody uses an airsoft gun to, stick up something.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Those people aren't going to stop sticking up stores or whatever else. They're just going to stop doing it with airsoft guns. And they're going to replace those airsoft guns with real guns.
The other reason they're doing this is because Doctors for Protection from Guns was lobbying for these kinds of things because of the one child a day shot in Ontario thing included air guns, paintball guns, airsoft guns in the statistics. And you can see right after they brought this out, they tweeted saying, "Good, these are gateway guns into violence." And I was like, "Are
The gateway guns.
The gateway
gun.
The pellet guns. Do you guys think the Daisy Red Ryder will be prohibited in the future?
Yes,
I've got a gun in my cabinet. It looks just like that thing.
Someone pointed out that what was it, A Christmas Story, whatever the hell that one is, where the kid gets the daisy and shoots his eye out. That is now the story of a child trying to acquire an illegal prohibited firearm.
What is this?
But yeah, gateway. Well, I guess they're not wrong. I started playing paintball when I was 12, and look at me now.
I bought my first pellet gun out of a vendor in front of my school in Colombia, and I used it to shoot my classmates.
I wouldn't talk about that part.
Who cares?
Don't talk about that.
None of them speak English.
Colombia.
There's
no laws in Colombia.
Who cares? Any other questions, Adriel?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of the questions are things that I think Ian has already addressed or will address. I mean, the new classification of guns that have just been bad have been called like really oddly mid-velocity guns. So like the low stuff was already handled. The high stuff was already handled. Those are all guns. Anything that's in the mid-range, i.e. like low-velocity airsoft and pellet guns and all that kind of stuff, those are all now banned, or going to be banned. Going to be once this receives royal ascension, if it even does. If this isn't just I guess that's an elected ploy to try to get liberal majority.
This is the summary of this. This is in all likelihood probably not going to go and become a law. It's going to be used by the Liberal Party as a way to rally their base, to give them money for an election. Say, look, we're trying to pass a law to keep the streets safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then an election might happen in the summer, and hilarity will ensue afterwards.
And they'll introduce something that's weird afterwards. I've actually got two questions here that are pretty good. One, Ian, what's your favorite gun? And two, what should we as citizens do?
Oh.
Favorite gun is tough because it depends on favorite gun for what.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have the.
There's got to be one. That's the favorite. You're like a parent. You don't want to say like, you know what? I like you all equally. Come on.
No, I mean, it's not that. It's just that there's different things that I really like doing. For taking newbies out, it's got to be an old Kui single shot that I've got.
Yeah, buddy.
I've got a very strong sentimental attachment to a particular 20 gauge that is the only thing I own that my grandfather owned. I've got my Chiapa Rhino, which is engraved with paid for by the chief firearms officer, and that has a special place in my heart. I've got a what is it? A gun, that's a custom, custom gun there. That's fantastic. So it's.
Is that one of Steve's?
Yeah, that's one of Steve's.
Long range precision rifles.
EM
is that
precision.
The one in that Snowflake 246? What is it?
Yeah, it's 6.5 by
284.
Yeah, I knew it was a 200 in there.
A barrel burner, but hot and fast.
The thing is, it's really hard to find ammunition for it, so I'm gonna have to get into reloading.
Yeah, buddy.
But I got to talk to my insurer about that because they keep saying that they'll get me an answer, and then they keep not getting me an answer. Apparently, they have a policy about reloading, but they can't tell me what it is. But I mean, shooting that thing is an absolute pleasure, and it's one of those, taking that out to the range. I just felt like I was way better a shot than I am because just. I got a scope put on it from, I think that was Tundra that and they just sort of eyeballed it. I was able to go to the range and put a shot on a steel plate with that, just right from the store. And then after that, just able to sort of dial it in to right dead on where I was hitting. And damn, that's a wonderful feeling. And that's not something I'm a gun lawyer. I am not, John Q. Badass. But when I'm sitting out there and I'm able to, reliably put shots sort of into a tight group with that thing, I was just like, oh, I like this. This is nice.
Yeah, buddy.
It's nice to be able to look through a nice clean scope, slowly press off the trigger, and have that round go exactly where the crosshairs were.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful feeling.
Well, and the moment where I was just like, ooh, I really like this gun was one where I was sort of sitting there, fired, it lands right on the right where the crosshairs are. I'm like, okay, great, fire again, and just I can see the sort of lead splatter right on top of the previous lead splatter, and I was just like, yes. Yeah. So,
yeah, target shooting is fantastic. I think that a lot of people that are arguing about gun control on Reddit or Facebook and that kind of thing, they don't really understand. They probably haven't been out doing it. Maybe they just haven't had the opportunity to try it out. But it is very much a skill. It's very much like an enjoyable hobby, and like you mentioned, like you get pleasure in some of these little things about the hobby. You go out to the range and you start pumping like round after round, like in the same spot. Like, yeah, man, I'm just nailing it out of the park. Hitting the same clay, flying through the air can bring the same thing to some people.
Getting your first 25 out of 25 at the trap field felt good.
I will let you know when that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is I also find it's really meditative because if you go out and you're full of, being angry or, frustrated or whatever, you've got all these emotions from your life because, sometimes life is stressful or whatever else. You're going to shoot like shit. You've got to be able to let that go and, sort of get into a better headspace. And so I often find I go to the range and like my first half hour is basically just a waste, like a giant garbage fire, because it takes me some time to sort of get into that sort of meditative headspace. And then I find I'm doing much better, once I'm calm, and then I leave with that calm. That's something that's hard for me to get because of my attention deficit.
I find the opposite. I end up worse over the day compared to the start. I start off and I'm great, and I get progressively crappier throughout the day. But the whole thing about going there with the right mentality, absolutely. Like the first time I went to the range after moving, I was so worried about a bunch of things. Like the previous night, something had happened that freaked me out, and so I was spending all this time at the range just thinking about all this and that, like basically just like, did I lock the door, did I lock the safe, is the safe open, did I close the thing the safe is in, and can people see it from the window? And I was so just I was so not there that I was just like about 45 minutes in, I'm just like, I have to go home right now. I can't, I'm not shooting well, and I'm too needlessly paranoid about stuff. I need to go home.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing the other sort of question that was had is, what can we do about this? And first, donate to, gun groups as well as the conservatives. I don't agree with the conservatives on lots of stuff, but unfortunately, they're our only option. And, those of you who are talking about, like, I'm going to support a third party because the conservatives aren't whatever enough for you. Well, no. I mean, either you want to keep your guns or you don't. And, if you're looking at a third party, it means you don't. That's just the long and short of it.
Well, in some areas, going the third party will hurt the conservatives from getting a spot. So
for sure, hurting the conservatives is a great way to help the liberals.
Last election, what was the PPC cost the conservatives 6 ridings potentially?
Yeah,
over the liberals.
So I mean, if you're voting PPC, it basically means that you want the liberals to win.
If you're voting for the Maverick Party, it basically means you want the liberals to win.
Yep, that's just how the math works. You You can
You
say,
don't-
well, that's not really what I. No, that's just how the math works.
The other thing is you don't
can't
need
fight
a
the math.
federal separatist party. Quebec has it because they're Quebec. But if you are really serious about Wexit, do it at the provincial level, because a federal Wexit party is an irrelevant joke. No one is
Yeah.
going to care about it. It's not going to be able to do anything. It's going to be completely useless. And you don't need to concern yourself with federal politics if you're planning to leave the country.
Thanks,
So
Tracy.
vote
and-
in the Wexit party provincially if you want Wexit. That
The
the
other
provincial
thing-
government's where it's going to do it.
The other thing I'd suggest is take somebody new to the range, and especially
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't agree with you.
So
Somebody who is different from you politically, and maybe looks different from you. Because the more people we have who are enjoying going to the range or just understand, what it's about, the better we are. And my sort of ideal situation, some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to take this person because, they're an NDP supporter. It's like, that's exactly why you should take them. I want it so that when the NDP have a meeting to say, what's our gun policy, they have a real hard time finding, 8 people to form a committee that doesn't have one person going, well, actually, I have handguns and, I don't
Yep.
agree with this.
Yeah.
If we don't have that broad support, then we can't have those people in those rooms to make those points for us. So absolutely. And, we want to be as welcoming a community as possible, keeping in mind that the thing that unifies us is just about that we are gun owners. So that also includes, being friendly to people who are different politically, being friendly to people who are different, whatever. We need broad support of firearm ownership, or it's going to dwindle and go away.
See,
We're
there
gonna end up
is
being Australia.
I think that's super important, Ian, and I think that taking people to the range is a fantastic idea. I think that if they voted for the other guys, it hurt us, but please work within. Please,
Yep.
go to those meetings, make your voice heard, make sure that they understand that they're hurting their members when they pull this kind of stuff, because
See, there is, I think, a bit of an issue with the major and 3 entrenched parties. There is the Liberals, or you're never going to realistically the Liberal Party. You are never going to. I'm genuinely convinced you are never going to convince the Liberal Party to abandon gun control. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do,
I agree
you are
with you.
never going to do that. The NDP, I also don't think you're ever going to do that. And the NDP is increasingly going towards that kind of woke, almost cult-like mentality with wokeness, where if you don't agree with the horde, we're going to shove you out. So if you show, I'm genuinely think if you're going to show up at the NDP thing and say, I own a handgun, they're going to say, get the hell out of here. We don't want you here.
Well,
so that's
and
the issue. I
that's
really
fine
think
too. If people get, find that learning something gets them cast out and needing a new political home, that's fine too.
I really think the one
but-
party on the left that still has some degree of leeway is the Greens. And a lot of people kind of dismiss the Greens, but we've been seeing them increase in popularity every election now. They won 4 ridings last time.
But here's the thing: the NDP pride themselves on being a party of workers and farmers, and one day, sometime soon, they're going to need to have a reckoning on that, because the people who they target with this sort of policy are lots of workers and farmers. If you start talking about banning, 12 gauges, which may have already happened, who does that harm? That harms, a lot of working class people and a lot of farmers and a lot of other people who they sort of claim to be supporting.
The
So,
issue with the NDP is they claim to be supporting working class, and that might have been true in the past, but certainly now they are the party of the millennial university student.
with that,
But I don't
do
think that
want to
needs
mention
to always
one thing
be the
though.
case. And I think that there is room for, so I do think it is important to have some outreach. And, if you just give up on that sort of thing, it's ultimately, you're going to have a problem.
One of the things that I saw a lot of that really I found to be not beneficial is the vitriol, the degree of aggressiveness that you see lobbied towards people of a different political background than you. And that is going to get you nowhere, folks. We're going to get nowhere if we keep attacking each other. And one of the things that I love that I think is really beneficial to the sport, to the cause, however you want to call it, is those university clubs.
Yeah, the
USF.
university clubs,
Those
Yep,
places are
Yeah.
places where we can get change started, because at that age you're finally getting out into the world. You're shaping yourself into the person that you're going to be probably for the rest of your life, and there is a place for you to enact change. There is a reason that universities are always places where you get revolts, is because people are exposed to new ideas in there. So if you want to do something, and I'm kind of taking over for the question that was lobbied at you, Ian, but if you want to do something, those university clubs are an excellent place to go.
And another one that I want to, I'm trying to reach out to the Pink Pistols in Toronto. I'm trying to invite them onto my show because, quite frankly, I mean, we need more gun owners in different sort of categories.
The issue, I think, of the
quite-
Pink Pistols Canada is very invisible, unfortunately. I don't think a lot of people realize they exist.
They exist. There's just the one chapter that I'm aware of that's in Toronto, which, I mean, how's this going to go with this new ban? But it's people don't really. One thing that people don't typically think is that when you think of like who has a heightened self-defense need, it's often the groups of people who are marginalized in society.
Yeah.
It's so reaching out to those groups and is, to my mind, a place where we can sort of win. It's a good idea to reach out to new people. Lots of people out there are anti-gun because they've never actually tried it. And I will say, I myself, growing up, was pretty strongly anti-gun for a substantial portion of my life. I got better, but I got better because I was able to talk to people who didn't just, call me names and were willing to discuss and reason, things through with me, and ask tough questions that I had to sort of investigate and look into, and that eventually changed my mind. So that ability to reach out is important. And if you can't, you might not be the kind of person who can be that kind of outreach person, but you can at least not be that guy that really ruins it for, that, because you don't want to be the guy who a new person goes to the range and is just trying things out and you're the reason they never come back.
Yep.
So don't be that guy. And
Also, for people who are wondering, the Pink Pistols is an LGBT gun rights organization.
They started out of the U.S., but I think they've really broadened their reach nowadays. Shout out to the University of Guelph student that wants to start their gun club. Keep at it, buddy. Keep at it.
Yeah. Talk to QSIF, the CUSF. They that's what they're made for, is helping this kind of thing around the country.
Yep.
And I echo what Ian said. If you want to affect change in a real way, there's 2 million PAL owners in Canada. Everyone takes some people out to the range, has a good time. Don't put them on anything too crazy to start with. Get them started on some 22s, some low recoil stuff. Let them enjoy themselves. And I think that we affect change in society that way. Each one of us has a part in doing this.
Honestly, one of the things that pisses me off is when I see these videos of some dude who hands his girlfriend like a 12 gauge with 3.5-inch magnums in it as her first gun. That's not how you get people to like guns. That woman's going to be traumatized about guns now because the thing beat her the hell up from it. You start off with a 22 that's got no recoil and then slowly move up in caliber to the point where the person says, all right, this is about where I've hit my level of comfort. But by that point, they've already learned, here's a bunch of other stuff. Some people will be like, oh, well, it's shock therapy. You show them the worst thing first and then go to easier. No, you don't, because they're just going to be scared of all the other stuff now because you've shocked them with that thing first.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that.
Somebody check out Slamfire Radio. Slamfire Radio too. You.
Yes. Yeah.
There are some good videos out there on how to take people, to the range sort of as a first time. I'm probably going to do one of my own in not too long, but don't hand them the magnums to start.
I mean, a 22 is really rewarding, especially if you're running like a scope, something that you hit where the X is. That's really rewarding. Clays can be very rewarding, but like the recoil's a little bit more. So some people really like that. Before, one of my favorite things was having them shoot at the AR.
Yeah,
because
I
the
was
AR,
just gonna say
it's
the
low
ARs.
recoil, and they get going on it, and they're like, man, I kind of like this thing. I can shoot 100 meters. I can shoot over and over. Like it's really nice for that kind of thing.
The best thing with the AR is they've heard just in the media how scary it is, how terrible it is. That one reporter who's traumatized and has PTSD from shooting it, and then they go and shoot it, and it shatters all of that because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not scary. It's not high recoil. It's not this big, super powerful thing that cuts a moose in half in one shot that misses.
You're thinking of the AK. Those are only good for pterodactyls.
Well, the expert that they had on from Simon Fraser University on the CBC, he was talking about the AR and like if you shoot a deer in the head, its head will explode if you shoot it with that. Which I mean, maybe, but like that's what happened with every caliber.
I'm remembering that video of the one that gets shot right in the forehead and its eyes pop out.
Fun fact that was with a 223 as well. So I mean, like it's not far off, but it's wrong for many other ways. Like hunters don't shoot deer in the head. That was a cull. That was a deer cull that was done by professional shooters. It's not something that happens, and I think we've all heard lots of myths and that kind of thing. And getting someone behind that gun, shooting at the range, they love it. It just comes across like, wow, this is really ergonomic.
Oh, also, you can have your PAL before you turn 18. You can get a minor's license. So I've ran courses where everybody in the family that was above 12 gets to get their gun license. So get your kids into it started. Whenever talk to your partner, decide when they want to introduce this. And what I tell my students is, you show that kid that gun and they understand what it can do. It's not going to be something that they seek out because it's unknown. It's not something that they're going to fear because it's unknown. If they understand what that does, they get to go in and talk and understand with their friends what it is that these things are actually capable of.
Yep. I'm 27 and I've had my gun license for 13 years because I'm turning 28 this year. I got my minor's license when I was 15.
And you probably wouldn't have been one of those kids who was like, my parents got guns. Let's go unlock them and point them at each other and click the trigger and see what happens. You're probably like, nope, don't touch that. That's in the safe. Nope.
I couldn't even get into the safe.
Which is legally required. But I mean,
just it's outreach, folks. Like at this point, the money to the CCFR is gonna help, but we need numbers. We need exposure. We need diversity. We need a wide reach, and we need the voter base that everybody gets the phone call from Angus Reid, and they say, well, what do you think about this? And then if you tell them that you think that this bill sucks and they're in the writing that is going to be decisive in the next election, then maybe something is going to go off in that politician's mind that is looking to implement this and go, we're not going to gain seats from this because there's just too many people involved.
There's too many people who see the point of this, too many people who see like this is something that some people enjoy, and maybe let's just leave it alone. That would be perfect if we can get to that critical mass where we have so many people.
There's just too many.
Yeah, sorry, it's not worth the political risk of taking this on.
One thing, if people are not wanting to donate to a political party, that you can potentially try and do, especially if you own a gun that's affected by this, buy someone a firearms license for every gun of yours that was banned as a matter of a political activist thing. The more people who have gun licenses, the more people are involved in shooting sports. So if you're going out and taking that money, hundreds of dollars it is to go and get someone on a course, doing the test, pay for their license and all that, that's more people getting involved in the shooting community. And that is a direct way that you can increase the numbers, is to go out and for every gun of yours that was banned, get someone a gun license, get them into the shooting sports. And then if you want to, start talking about the fact that you did that as many places as you can. The liberals banned my guns, and so I bought gun licenses for as many people as they banned my guns. Try and make it seem as if the Liberals are increasing license numbers by doing this as part of this protest political movement.
There's a belief that gun ownership in Canada is a minority issue. Keep in mind, there are more gun owners, PAL holders in Canada than people that participate in hockey. So,
yeah, it would be the most popular sport in Canada. We just need to keep in mind that we're not a minority. We need to add more people to support a cause, and I think that taking people out to the range is fun. I love taking people out and seeing them hit their target and be like, oh, I got it! Like that rush of like, I got it. And
then you lunge in there to keep the rifle pointed down range.
Well, I always started.
It's a direct connection between like they see what I love about this sport, they see what I love about this hobby, and after that, the drive back home is very different. The language that's used on the drive back home, it's like, oh man, that was so much fun. What do I need to do to get an AR-15? What are the rules around it? And you start telling them, like, that's some bullshit.
I've taken people to the range who start out like totally anti-gun and whatever else, and the first thing I always do, or did when this was legal, pull out the AR-15, set it aside. Because, at that point, they're worried about it. It's a big, scary thing. And it's like, this is a side. And then give them the 22 single shot. Old Cooey single shot. And that one's great because if they do the thing where they're like excited and they turn,
yep.
I know there's only one shot in that thing.
Yeah,
they're
true.
turning around, it's empty. Great. Yeah. But, then you move them up and eventually they're going to be sort of going from eyeing the AR-15 going, I'm nervous about that, to eyeing it going, when do I get to shoot that? And eventually they speak up and are like, I want to try that now, please. And that's sort of when you say, okay, let's try this out. And, always you get this sort of reaction. I mean, some people are just like, okay, that was a thing and it's not for me. But lots of people come away going, I get it now. So
you have to like anchor them with a maximum too, right? Bring out the Mosin Nagant and be like, do you want to shoot like an old a wood rifle from the 1890s? I got it right here. Let's try that one out. Yeah, prone, go for it. Yeah, try that one. No, I'm joking. I'm it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but even shooting that thing from the bench, you like shoot that, you're like, oh, that was horrible. Give me the AR. I want that one. And they can see like, that wood old bolt action rifle is not as nice to shoot. It's not as ergonomic. It's not as adaptable, flexible to what I need for adjustability as the AR-15. And that's
like a true
real
capitalist.
I'm a capitalist through it. I think that a lot of people when they feel it and they get that anchor of here's what a wood rifle, a wood bolt action rifle from the 1890s is like. They're like, okay, I'm glad I tried it, but give me the AR-15. Please.
Okay, but to be fair, everyone who I've had shoot my SVT-40 has absolutely loved it.
The SVT-40 is very nice.
The SVT-40
I would say the Mosin is
it's
not.
a beast unto itself, especially if you get the ones with the 4-port muzzle brake. Those things are a hoot.
Yeah. Awesome.
I've shot that indoors before. It's obnoxious.
Do we have anything else to cover? I think
there was one dude who really wanted us to cover basically scalping. He was very adamant that
on Reddit. This is a Reddit post.
Yeah, on Reddit. He's very adamant that scalping is harming the gun community, and there's I think it is, and I think the mentality of a lot of these old guys with like, for one, that are a lot of the guys who are going and buying 3 Type 81 LMGs and trying to sell them for $4,000 each. Yeah, that is hurting the gun community, and also there is a part of it as well. When you go to like a gun show, I know in Alberta, you guys have great gun shows. In Ontario, our gun shows suck. You go there,
no, they're pretty bad. They're all expensive.
I've heard the Calgary Gun Show.
You're thinking about just the size and the variety. Yeah, we got you beat. The biggest one in Canada is in Calgary. It always happened on the Easter weekend. It's not happening this year, and it didn't happen last year, much to my sadness.
But
it's still a gun show, man. It's still a gun
the
show.
issue
You
with-
still see
so-
1022s for $500, and you still see Mosin guns for $800.
And so that's another thing is when you get all these old guys who are asking like $1,000 for some old crappy 30-30, and they've got like 14 of them, and oh no, Sonny, I know what I got. Yeah, that guy is hurting. Is hurting shooting sports in this country by being a grouchy old crap who's got a whole bunch of guns he's overpricing that he knows no one's ever gonna buy. Like,
see, you're talking about the
goddamn,
wrong
some
market,
of those.
those are the Winchester commemorative rifles. Those ones are like this extremely small subset of the
No,
gun
it's
owning
not
population.
even that. I've seen these people with just some freaking stupid regular ass
Yeah,
like
they just have
post
regular- they
64
have
30
garbage.
30 for like $1,000, and I'm like, are you stoned?
There's this thing you get in the board gaming sphere, and I think it happens in the gun sphere as well, which goes like this. Somebody's wife says, or husband says, you have too many board games or guns. You got to sell a few of them.
Yep.
And so they go, great, I'll put some up for sale. And so they go and they open up a page and they set it up and they say, okay, this SKS is going to go for $1,500. And then later they say, honey, I tried. It just didn't sell.
See, the thing though is when you go to a gun show, you got to pay to book the stupid table and go and set up and all that crap. And then you're sitting there with all of this crap that's not selling, and
Dude,
you're a
those
rude,
guys are
crotchety
there-
old
Doesn't
shit
matter.
to these people.
There's guys that are there
some of
to
those
sell
guys are there to
things.
show off.
There
and
are
just,
guys that are there to sell this, and I still think to that Dan Wesson Model 315 that was there on the table for $325 when that was a $700 revolver. I still think back to that gun that I never picked up.
I still think back to the Craig Jorgensen I should have offered someone $200 for.
Yep.
It was sporterized, of course, but still.
They're there, but I mean, like for a lot of guys, I think it's like, they get to hang out with their buddies.
Yeah,
a lot of
thing.
the gun sellers on the gun show circuit know each other, and they're like they're buddies, and they get to hang out and talk to other gun owners. And like, what's the table cost? $50, $100? You have to make
they go in
$100
soup
profit to make it worth it. You can drink coffee and hang out with gun owners for a while.
Yeah, but
it's a social thing.
They end
It's
up
a
being
crappy thing for new gun owners to show up to one of those and not get what they want, which is like, I'm showing up here because it's a gun show. I assume I can buy a reasonably priced gun, and you just don't get it because it's a bunch of old guys who like want to hang out with and talk guns with other people and not actually sell what they brought.
I've got an over and under. It's a Baikal shotgun, and I got that at a gun show, and it was priced at something like $800, which for a Baikal is just stupid.
It's more than retail.
Yeah, no, and but I was there and I got talking to the guy, and I was looking at the things, and I was basically saying like, I'm just looking for a cheap over under shotgun, like that's it, and I'm just trying to trying to find something. And so he takes this $800 shotgun and he knocked it down to something like $200, which is a much better price it's a good price for a Baikal.
That is.
Yeah,
And, so sold that to me, and hey, no problem. But, really it was just that he was there to chat with his friends. And once he was convinced that I was a guy he wanted to sell a gun to, he moved it to a let's sell this gun price.
So
that's a really interesting comment.
Was a complete opposite of that, frankly.
What were you going to say,
Like-
Adriel?
Well, that's a really interesting comment because that's exactly what the commenter on Reddit wants the gun community to do. I mean, like, I'm a staunch capitalist. I don't really agree. I think like, market will pay what market will bear. But at the same time, you got this really great experience where you ran into someone and they're like, man, this person really wants to get into this. I've got this shotgun. He probably paid less for it, but the price increased since then.
Yep.
So that's like money that he hasn't really paid. It hasn't really hurt him any. He can sell it for a lower price to you and not lose anything and gain a supporter, right? So I think
I've gifted guns before. Christmas time, birthdays. I've given I've given out two 870s because I know I have too many of those. I've given away two 870s one to a buddy of mine for his birthday, and one to my dad, who just got his license after I taught him the course.
I mean, I bought a buddy an SKS for his birthday. Me and a couple buddies chipped in, bought him that because I'm like, you have to have an SKS. You just got your gun license. You need an SKS. So
And you need to take a picture of it where your feet are showing.
Exactly.
Funny enough, I actually still don't own an SKS. I moved out in November.
I'm buying one tomorrow simply because I need one for the course.
But the thing that I was going to say, my experience at the gun show was the complete opposite. Back in 2011, when SVTs were $289, I went to the gun show.
Raise the price when they get to know you?
No, it's just... But like, I went to the gun show hoping that maybe I'd be able to find a deal on something, or at least some bit of a reasonable price. And this was when SVTs were everywhere, and they were like $300. So I go to the gun show and I see these dudes. I got a table with like 5 SVTs, and they're asking $400 for them. So I go up to the guy and I'm like, "Hey, you willing to negotiate on some of the prices here?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess suppose. What are you thinking?" And I'm like, "Well, Epps has the SVT right now for $300." And his response was, "Well, if Epps has them for $300, bud, I suggest you go buy as many of them from Epps as you can, because these things are gonna go up in price real shortly. And I know all mine are hand picked, and they're all the finest quality, all the usual bullshit that you're used to hearing."
But he was right with the long term.
No. But this was 2011. It took until 2015 for them to go up in price any significant amount of value. It took 4 years.
He was a long-term visionary.
He was the people still holding on to GameStop stock.
No, he was like the way he talked is that these were going to go up in price in like 3 months. They didn't.
They always did. That's the same thing that they've been saying first about Lee Enfields, then about Springfield 1903s, then Mosins, K31s, SVTs, SKSs are going to go up in price at some point. They are.
I mean, they already are. But the thing with this is they were available at every single retailer for $300 or less, and this guy wanted $100 more than that just because he was at the gun.
It's the gun show hike, dude. It's the gun.
And he wasn't willing to negotiate. So I didn't know that. It was my first time going to the gun show, and my thought of them from hearing about them
Here's a real pro tip. Don't ever go to a gun show unless you're with somebody like me or Adriel or you now. Don't. If you've never
That's what I did with my buddy.
Don't go to a gun show unless you're with somebody that owns
me and my
guns.
buddy went to a gun show afterwards. So I told them, expect to be disappointed. We're gonna go take a look, but expect to be disappointed. And sure enough, but like when I went there after he did that, I'm like, okay, fine, screw this. I went home and bought it from SFRC for $289 for the damn thing. So
but you saw it, you got to like feel it.
Yeah.
Is this something I want?
I am actually on a CTV report about the closing of wholesale sports, specifically saying, yeah, I go to gun shops to try the guns, then I go online and I find them for cheaper and I buy them from them.
Yep.
It's a reason. I will still go to Cabela's, and I will still go to Proline, and I will still go into the Calgary Shooting Center. I just bought a mare's leg from a shop in Lethbridge that I have never seen ever. I had to buy it over the phone. I had to get my credit card over the phone to buy this gun. Because, it's the only one that has it, and I gotta support local. I could give my money to Cabela's, and then that goes to the U.S. I could buy the gun from anywhere else that has it in stock, except they didn't. But I went with this hole in the wall, for all I know, or Bashaw Sports, which, by the way, is an excellent shop. But if you go look at the map, Bashaw is a pinhole in the map in the middle of Alberta.
I remember buying a phone from where the hell was it?
What did you say, Adriel?
Prophet River.
Prophet River is amazing. SIR was amazing too. I'm watching my chat here on Hunting Gear Guy. Can you manufacture firearms for personal use? Was one question. The other one was, can we ask Ian for feet pics?
Ooh.
You can ask, but that's just creepy and no.
Oh, you've been memed. You see, I saw you saw the chat.
I saw that. I mean, it's not 100% accurate, but it was funny.
Oh.
Just like
I was surprised it took this long to see a chat thunder cocky and.
See, I was not surprised that I eventually showed up in a Chad versus Virgin meme. I just kind of thought I'd be on the other side of it.
I think that's the best way to end this right now. What do you think? We good?
Yeah, we're there. We're there.
Good. All right, folks. I hope this has been educational. Join university associations, become active, pay people for their pals, or pay for their pals for people. Don't pay for pals for people. That's illegal. Yeah.
Take people out to the range.
Take people out to the range, and
Go get our pal and pal from
the
Foothills
Foothills Firearms
Firearms
Training.
in Calgary.
Yeah.
Go
Or anywhere
watch-
around. Anywhere around. I travel.
You travel.
And go watch Slamfire Radio and subscribe to Runkle of the Bailey. And watch Anime for Crazy.
One day I need to. I'm the only person without like a YouTube channel on
Yeah,
this or
well,
anything.
yeah.
I need to go and get started on that.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Kill it in 3, 2, 1. Peace out. There's another button. There.